So there are supposedly a lot of big Nintendo Switch 2 games that are leaked and rumored for the platform. So I wanted to go over 30 plus of the biggest titles that you can expect on the system in 2026 or beyond. Now these are rumors and leaks, so keep that in mind. So we gotta wait and see when they happen or if they happen, but a lot of this stuff is from pretty credible sources out there that have gotten a number of things right, or even from the developers themselves when it comes to them talking about a specific game. But before we continue on, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2. All you have to do to enter is hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed, and drop a comment below. We are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 once we hit 150,000 subscribers, and it will be random. So the more that you actually comment and interact, the better chance that you have to win. Hit that like button, click that notification bell, and let's go ahead and jump right back into it. Let's start off with Stellar Blade. This comes straight from Shift Up, the developer. They've talked about wanting to expand to new platforms, and the Nintendo Switch 2 would be one of those platforms. Now, one of the biggest things that backs this is the fact that they gifted all of their employees, every single one of them, hundreds in there that made this game, they gifted them a Nintendo Switch 2. So I think that the management wanted the developers to get familiar with the system. Now, of course, they're going to be using dev kits, but of course, taking the system, having it in your hands, knowing what makes it good, what makes it not so good when it comes to the strength of playing is important as well. So Stellar Blade is absolutely a game based off of what the developers have said in their investor meetings and based off of what we've seen so far, that it's probably going to be heading to the Nintendo Switch 2. Next up, let's talk about Starfield. That was recently leaked via a ratings board, and it does seem like it's going to be happening. Now, we did get some rumors that it was going to be happening beforehand. There was some doubt with this game just because the PlayStation 5 version launched with some issues, and I think there was also some reports that the Switch 2 version is having some issues because it's not day and date with the PlayStation 5 version, but that of course could just be development time when it comes to dev kits and everything. So we'll see what happens with Starfield. There is of course an Xbox Series S version of this game, and what we've seen so far, the developers are able to leverage what they've learned or what they do on the Series S to make games on the Nintendo Switch 2, and sometimes to even better results like Street Fighter 6, for example, and in some parts of Pragmata. So I do think that Starfield probably is still going to be coming over to the Switch 2. We also have Indiana Jones in addition to Fallout 4, a lot of Microsoft support coming over. There's also the Oblivion remaster as well. So there's a lot of games. So I would also expect everything that Microsoft can do will come over to the Switch 2, including Starfield. Pearl Abyss's massive RPG adventure thingy, Crimson Desert, based off of the developer comments, seems to be coming over as well. And that's interesting because Crimson Desert is such a massive game, and it's got a pretty wide range of scale from the Xbox Series S version all the way up to PlayStation 5 Pro and PC. But of course, if you have the highest end PC, that's pretty much the place to play it. Now, it's one of those games that's very, I would say, tricky when it comes to how it's going to play or run on the Switch 2. If the developer can actually, I would say, take advantage of the system and research it properly, which that's what they talked about. In an investor meeting, they stated that they're doing R&D on the Nintendo Switch 2 version. So they have to really research and make sure that they get it right. It wasn't a priority, but the game has already sold over 5 million units. So the Switch 2 is not something that they have to say, oh my gosh, let's rush it out because we need some sales or something like that. So it does give them time to make sure that they get Crimson Desert right. Now, whether you're going to like the game or not, obviously that's something on you. You got to check it out yourself, see the reviews, see what you think about it. Seems like it's a good game with some issues here and there, just like Starfield and some of the other games that we're going to talk about on this list. But either way, the more high-profile games that come to the Switch 2, the better. So I hope that Crimson Desert does come over and it's a solid version of the game. Let's get into Hi-Fi Rush on the Nintendo Switch 2. This has been leaked for a while now when it comes to rating boards, plus rumors that have just been abound everywhere when it comes to Hi-Fi Rush. So yeah, I think it is going to come. There's just been some problems when it comes to Microsoft. They laid off everybody, they shuttered the studio, and then I think they got picked up, and then they bought the IP from Microsoft, so it's going to continue on now. There's probably going to be a Hi-Fi Rush 2, and there's going to be probably some remasters. There's like physical editions. There's all sorts of stuff with this game. I don't know. I did play it. I think it's okay. It's just not for me personally, but I know that it's a good game. There's some really cool music, rhythm, action in there. There's some great characters and writing, cool art style. So it's a good game. It's just not necessarily for me, but I think a lot of you guys, if it came out on the Switch too, I think a lot of you guys would really like it, especially a true native portable version of that game. That's pretty cool. I think it would be fun. And of course you can play it on PC handhelds, but one built for an actual console. I think that'd be pretty fun to have. So Hi-Fi Rush potentially coming over. I'm guessing we'll probably see that more sooner than later. Next up is Diablo 4. That was also rumored beforehand. I think Jez Corden, Windows Central, rumored it beforehand, but if it wasn't from there, it also got leaked via a ratings board. I have the game on PlayStation 5. I think it's an okay game, but it's just, once again, not for me. But I do feel that Diablo 4 is a good game. There's also been some expansions and a bunch of stuff added in. There's been updates from when I played it. I forgot exactly when I played it, but I know it was well after it launched. But it's still a solid game. It's a good game. It's Diablo, obviously, action RPG, a lot of customization, a lot of different things to do in the game. It's got a story and everything all set up. There's a certain style that Diablo is when it comes to that type of game that people do like and has done well on the Nintendo Switch 1 with the previous Diablo games. So I'm expecting Diablo 4 to come over to some success on the Nintendo Switch 2. Let's get some horror here. Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 remake, Nate the Hate rumor, but also common sense, I would say as well, because Capcom has been doing multi-compilations of past Resident Evil games for a while now on Nintendo hardware later. So if you look at the Switch 1, you had Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. There was a triple pack there. Then you look at the Nintendo Switch 2, there was Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9 is Requiem. So this is very predictable that Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 remake are coming over. Nate the Hate does have a rumor on it, but it's so obvious, and this is probably the most obvious game out of any of the rumored games that we have here. Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 are happening. Obviously, Resident Evil The Generations pack did well when it came out on the top of the eShop charts. Resident Evil Requiem continues to do solid on the Nintendo Switch 2, considering the install base. So yes, expect Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4 remake to come over to the Switch 2. And of course, I will be playing Resident Evil 4 remake again on the Nintendo Switch 2. Played it on my PlayStation 5, thought it was fantastic. Resident Evil 4, the original on the GameCube, is one of my favorite games of all time. Definitely a top 10 plus game for me. So yes, Resident Evil 4, bring it on. Love to see that. Let's keep it going with Resident Evil though, because Resident Evil Code Veronica from Dusk Golem is apparently happening. He also has potentially Resident Evil Remake, so it's a remake of a remake, and then a Resident Evil 0 remake as well. All those are from Dusk Golem. All of this makes sense. Yes, Capcom does a lot of Resident Evil. Resident Evil sells really well, so I would expect all of these to happen. But the Resident Evil remake is awesome because the game was already remade. It's been remastered. Then it was also remade from the GameCube. That was awesome. I still think that's one of the best remakes of all time, because even if you played the original game, you can play that one and be like, oh wow, this feels different. So it would be great to bring those back. Resident Evil 0, all of those could use some nice touch-ups, especially Code Veronica. So Code Veronica, Resident Evil Remake, and Resident Evil 0. Now, those aren't rumored to be in some type of triple pack. They're going to be coming out like one a year or something like that. So maybe we'll see that starting next year in 2027. Maybe an announcement at the end of this year and start off with Code Veronica or Resident Evil Remake or Resident Evil 0, one of those. But yes, it seems like all of those are coming, according to very reliable leaker, Mr. Dusk Golem. Okay, next up is Devil May Cry 5, and that's also via a ratings board. And yes, Capcom, we got a lot of Capcom stuff here. Capcom has been one of the best supporters of the Nintendo Switch 2 so far, with games like Street Fighter, in addition to Pragmata that launched to great success, that sold over 1 million copies. Then you also have Monster Hunter Stories 3, and of course the Resident Evil Requiem game, plus Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8. They've been doing a great job, and I don't see that slowing down, especially with the Japanese domination of the Nintendo Switch 2 and the worldwide consumption and fast adoption rate of the Switch 2 in general. You've got to support where people are buying the system, and where the trajectory is definitely shooting high at this point. So I see Capcom continuing that big support on the Nintendo Switch 2, which is a far cry from where we were at the beginning of the Nintendo Switch 1 era, where Capcom was a bit apprehensive at first. At least they're kind of just waiting a bit, and of course developing that next big Monster Hunter game with Monster Hunter Rise. So I absolutely see Devil May Cry 5 happening. Now, to keep it here with the Capcom train, Monster Hunter Wilds, that's via data mining that game was leaked, or that game is leaked for the Nintendo Switch 2. So yes, I also see that happening. Capcom was complaining about the sales of Monster Hunter Wilds, and to be honest, I don't think it's gotten that much better, despite some different sales and updates, or discounts more like it, and updates. I don't think things have gotten too much better on that front. So I do think that they feel that they have to bring Monster Hunter Wilds over to the Nintendo Switch 2, and they're really kind of, I would say, exploring that and developing that and seeing how that progresses. But I will say this, I'll add in some extra commentary here. I really think Capcom needs to think about the essence of Monster Hunter and what makes players come back to play. Yes, you can talk about graphics. Yes, you can talk about different things like that and all that. But when it comes to content and when it comes to what's available, that's the most important thing over trying to make the biggest, shiniest looking game. I think Monster Hunter Rise proved that, selling pretty much right around the same as Wilds multi-platform compared to just singularly on the Nintendo Switch 1. They're right around the same. I think maybe Monster Hunter Wilds has sold a little bit more when it comes to just singular Switch 1 or the Switch version versus that. But I really would think Capcom needs to focus on what's important, and that's the content, and not worrying as much when it comes to we have to push the PS5 or the PS6 to the highest level. You can do it in Nintendo Switch 2, then put those over to other platforms and have it multi-platform, and it be good, fleshed full of content, because you're not worried about the graphical fidelity of the game the most, to the point to where there's issues, a lot of issues with the performance of the game. So just some word of advice for Capcom going forward, as someone who's more of a casual Monster Hunter fan, but I've been looking at what core Monster Hunter fans are saying. Let's jump into the Nintendo first party stuff with Star Fox, another Nate the Hate rumor here, and this seems to be happening based off of the incredible Star Fox spot that Star Fox got in the most recent Mario Galaxy movie. Yes, Fox is in space. It makes sense potentially for him to be there, but this is definitely more of a crossover than what we saw with the Donkey Kong situation with the first Mario movie, because Donkey Kong and Mario are intertwined as a franchise, whereas Star Fox and Mario are not. I can't recall anything outside of Super Smash Brothers that those two have really been intertwined with or had collaborations. So it definitely seems like, yes, they're playing on the space motif, but they're also prepping and preparing a massive audience of new people to potentially push Star Fox to being back as a big game to play. There was once upon a time, a lot of you youngins maybe don't know, but Star Fox was up there with The Legend of Zelda and Mario as top sellers for a Nintendo platform, on the Super Nintendo with Star Fox, on the Nintendo 64 with Star Fox 64, and yes, it fell off of a cliff there, but Star Fox, it can come back. I think that Star Fox had a good showing in the Mario movie. The gameplay is still just as good as ever. If you go back and you play Star Fox 64, you play Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, a little bit choppier there, but Star Fox 64 is awesome, and Star Fox Assault has some really high highs. Yeah, there are some parts maybe not quite as good, but that game is still very playable and still really good even to this day. So if they build off of that and then have what Nate the Hate is saying when it comes to great looking graphics, really good writing, Andy Robinson from VGC says that it's going to be funny. So if they compare that classic incredible gameplay with great graphics in addition to fantastic writing, witty, funny type of stuff, great replay value, and just really using the HD Rumble 2 on the Switch 2, having great portable play, dock play, I think Star Fox can make his grand return, and it can be really good. And apparently there's going to be multiplayer online as well. So if they've got some co-op plus some online multiplayer, that's what Star Fox absolutely needs. So I do think Star Fox is coming back, and we will see exactly how Nintendo plans to get it done based off of this big rumor here. We've got to discuss more big games here. Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Remake, big Nate the Hate rumor. This would be for the 40th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda, which it's celebrating everything this year, and this makes sense. Now, I don't know the scope and scale. I talked about that in a recent video, link in the description if you want to check that out, but I do think that this could happen. You have the Zelda movie coming up. We had the first image kind of come out or leak or put up there by the director or whatever, and it looks great. So I think that having an Ocarina of Time remake, having some directs when it comes to the Zelda movie like they did the Mario movie, and kind of really getting everybody into that spirit by the end of the year and following that momentum into the movie for next year, this makes a ton of sense. Now we have to wait and see who the developer is or what they do or if it happens, but I'm confident that Nate the Hate would not talk about this unless he was 100% sure or saw the actual, I would say, thing for the game. I just think that this is too big of something to mess up when it comes down to it. So I think that Ocarina of Time remake is happening on the Nintendo Switch 2, and that is one heck of a system seller when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 if that does happen. Okay, let's continue on here. Nintendo Switch Sports. Apparently there's going to be some type of remaster or remake or potentially even new Nintendo Switch Sports game. Nate the Hate once again on the rumor here. And I would say this, people don't realize that Nintendo Switch Sports was a low-key beast and system seller. This game has sold over 17 million plus units so far, and it quietly did that. It wasn't like it was selling millions at launch like Tears of the Kingdom or like Pokemon. It just quietly and consistently sold well every single week worldwide, towards the bottom of the sales charts many times, and of course digital sales with it. And families love it. Casuals, when it comes to the Switch 1, absolutely love it, and it got them to buy the system. So I would not be surprised if Nintendo decided to say, okay, let's get a remaster or a Switch 2 edition or a new Nintendo Switch 2 sports game out, or Nintendo Switch Sports 2 game out. It just makes a ton of sense based off of the millions upon millions of dollars, probably compared to the very low development cost that this game had. So I'm expecting that as well. Next up, we got to talk about Pikmin 4 Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. Nate the Hate once again stating that that's going to happen here, which makes sense. There's been some updates to it. Pikmin 4 is the best-selling Pikmin game, if I'm not correct here. It sold pretty good on the Nintendo Switch 1. All it really needs to me, of course, you can add in some extra content and all that, but 60 FPS, faster loading, better resolution, I think that would boost the profile of this game because it already looks really good even on the Nintendo Switch 1, but there are definitely limitations of the hardware that you can see, considering I think it's an Unreal Engine 4 type of game, but if you get that on Switch 2, you can clean that up a lot more. So Pikmin 4 Nintendo Switch 2 Edition definitely seems likely. Next up, Xenoblade 2 Remaster, or some type of Xenoblade game coming back, and yeah, that would make sense. Once again, Nate the Hate with the rumor on this one. And this one makes sense because Xenoblade 2 probably needs the most work for a remaster. Out of all the Xenoblade games, yes, Xenoblade X definitely needed it, and I'm glad that we got it with the Definitive Edition and then the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. That was fantastic. But Xenoblade 2 needs the same treatment when it comes to just the graphics in the game, the resolution. The boost mode helps out when playing the game on the Switch 2 in portable mode to clean that up, but it would be nice if we can get 60 frames per second, if we can get a retooling of the blade system and the frequency of the blade system, if we can just get a lot of stuff tweaked up with that, all of the updates, everything that they did, because the game did not launch in the best state, I think that would be phenomenal for the best selling when it comes to Monolith Soft first production team, the Xenoblade team, best selling game that they've ever made. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that we know of, at least here. I would love for that to be a thing, and I hope that it does happen this year, because I put 200 plus hours into Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition on Switch 2, so I want to put that time into Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in a Definitive Edition or remaster or something like that. All right, next up is The Division. We've got various rumors. Nate the Hate and other people have talked about this. The Division seems to be coming over to the Nintendo Switch 2. More Ubisoft games just in general. There's also the Rayman remake, but that's already kind of confirmed. But yeah, we will be getting more Ubisoft games that are coming out. I do think like Rainbow Six Siege could also come out as well. So if you like Ubisoft stuff, which I think they've done a pretty good job on the Switch 2, and they haven't been overloading us, they've just been kind of releasing things. Here's Star Wars Outlaws, Assassin's Creed Shadows game. So they've been doing a good job of optimizing, focusing when it comes to Switch 2 to make sure that they can maximize the release of the game instead of just throwing everything out there like maybe they've done a little bit before in the past on Nintendo platforms. So I like that. The Division is a game that I'm curious about. I've played a bit of it. I remember playing it like at E3 like a decade plus ago, but I've never really played it enough. Like if it came out on Switch 2, I might try it out just to see how it kind of plays and everything. So what do you guys think The Division? It's been a while since we've heard anything about that game or that franchise more like it. But it does seem like The Division 2 or something is coming over to the Nintendo Switch 2 from Ubisoft. Okay, we got an oldie but goodie. Kirby Planet Robobot remaster or re-release. Nate the Hates. This one was supposed to come out, I guess, a while ago, but it just hasn't. Now, Nintendo does sit on games. To be fair to Nate here, Nintendo does sit on games. We did hear about Tomodachi Life. Apparently that game was certified and rated and everything was done like a year ago, like May of 2025. And Nintendo's done this before. We know this with like, I think like New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, and I think like a Yoshi game or something like that. So they do sometimes sit on games. I think even Metroid Prime Remastered. So Kirby Planet Robobot could still be coming at this point. I mean, did they really take all this time to make Rhythm Heaven? I mean, like maybe it was done a while ago, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, man. But either way, I know that they've made some changes from when we saw Rhythm Heaven to when it's going to release now. They've made some artistic changes, so maybe it did take that time. But I do think that Nintendo does so much stuff, and you have to kind of plan and schedule out when you want to release things. That's strategically the best time to release them. So I do think that Kirby Planet Robot still could be in the works here. There's always Kirby coming. Nintendo always wants Kirby pretty much like every year, or like year and a half or something. So I would expect some type of Kirby remaster or something to be coming out on the Nintendo Switch 2 or Switch 1 or dual release somewhat soon here, or maybe announced this year. Okay, next up, another rumor, Nate the Hate here. We've got Metal Gear Solid Delta. This is one of the earlier rumors, I think before the Switch 2 even launched, or right around the time Metal Gear Solid Delta does seem to be coming over to the Nintendo Switch 2. I know DocTray81 also thinks that is happening, and it would make sense because Metal Gear Solid 4 and Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, the collection, that's coming over. The first collection came to Switch 1. They updated it for the Switch 2 so it can run and play better. Plus, you've got that Metal Gear Solid 4. This is the first time ever that Metal Gear Solid 4 is off of the PlayStation 3. It's the first time ever, obviously, of course, that Metal Gear Solid 4 is going to be coming over to the Nintendo Switch or Nintendo platform when it comes to Metal Gear Solid 4, of course. And in Metal Gear Solid, I think like Peace Walker, that game never before on Nintendo platform as well. So Konami clearly wants to put Metal Gear on a Nintendo platform, on Nintendo Switch 2. So I would expect this game to be coming over as well. I think that this game had a lot of issues when it comes to that Unreal Engine 5 on PlayStation 5. Even PS5 Pro had some issues. Now, they might have had some patches that's helped it out since then, but I know that there's been some issues with this game. So hopefully all of it is patched up and running and looking a lot better by the time that the Nintendo Switch 2 version comes out here. So we'll see what happens with that. Next up is another retailer leak, Tekken 8. We got a retailer, I think it was like in France or like a European like RTN leak or something like that. So pretty much a stock keeping unit. So it seems like Bandai Namco, they're putting something with Tekken on the Nintendo Switch 2. And this would be the first time that we get a Tekken game on a Nintendo platform if it does happen. I think since Tekken Tag Tournament 2 on the Nintendo Wii U. So they skipped the Nintendo Switch 1. They didn't even put like Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, or maybe even like the 3DS Tekken game or whatever like that. They didn't put anything when it comes to Tekken. They just kind of put all their chips on the table towards Pokken Tournament. They did Pokken Tournament, the original, then they did Pokken Tournament, like the deluxe edition on the Switch 1. And they're like, all right, cool, that's it. Like, if you want to play a Tekken type of game, play it with Pokemon. It's not really Tekken, but hey, you know what? Close enough for all you Nintendo peeps out there. So I do think that maybe Tekken comes over, since it doesn't seem like they're going to be doing anything with Pokken. I mean, you never know. We could see something in the future, but maybe Pokken is a no-go on Switch 2, so like a Pokken Tournament 2 or something like that. So maybe they decide to bring over Tekken, and of course you can just play backwards compatible with Pokken if you want to play it. Already runs at 60 frames per second, even on the Nintendo Wii U. So I'm kind of leaning more towards Tekken 8 is coming over as well. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is next. That was leaked via a ratings board listing. And yeah, that makes sense as well. This game was not a super successful game. I know Square Enix was not happy with the sales numbers, and I know that people would say, oh, they're always not happy with the sales numbers, but this one actually didn't do that great, and it got discounted pretty quickly from what I remember. I don't think it's a bad game. It reviewed well, but I think there was an issue because you can only play as Star-Lord. You can't play as the other Guardians of the Galaxy, so that kind of, I would say, dampened the excitement for a lot of the people that like Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I know it's a big movie and comic type of thing, but game-wise, they haven't really done too much with the franchise, so I don't know how many game players out there are excited for it, and if they are excited for it, well, you can only play as one character, despite there being all these other characters. And like, you can kind of sub them in for certain attacks, but I think maybe people were expecting maybe something a bit different, considering how dynamic each character is in the Guardians of the Galaxy. And the fact that you can't just like freely switch between them maybe was a problem with this game for some people out there. But it does seem like it's coming over. It's got a good narrative. People do like it that have played it. They feel that it's a good game. So I hope that it comes out and maybe it has second life, if this retailer listing is to be believed, which I'm pretty sure a retailer listing is to be believed here. All right, next up is something that I'm more attuned with, and that is Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition. This was also leaked via a ratings board, and it looks like it's going to be just coming to the Switch 2 based off of the ratings. Now, of course, it could still come to everything, but I don't think they've done any major DLC. They've done some things here and there for Sonic Frontiers, but they haven't done anything recently, more like it. They've done some DLC and stuff, but nothing recently for it. So maybe it's going to put together all of the updates, all whatever extra content they've already done and all of that, and then put it on the Switch 2. And I think that it would need it because the Switch 1 version of this game is crusty. And if I'm not correct, it's also capped at 30. So even if you play it on the Switch 2, it's not going to run at 60 frames per second. There's some pretty bad popping on the Switch 2 version of the game. There's just resolution issues. It's not great. I mean, it's okay, but it's not great. So yeah, a Switch 2 version of this game would be good, and Sonic Frontiers, it was one of the better selling on the Nintendo Switch 1. So this seems like this would be something that would be announced at like a Nintendo Direct, like a lot of these games here. So maybe at this next upcoming June Nintendo Direct or late May Nintendo Direct that Nintendo has, we're going to see Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition, and it just makes sense. Sega always supports Nintendo platforms ever since they went multi-plat and got rid of their home consoles. Expedition 33 is the next game up. Nate the Hate has rumored on this one here, and this also makes sense to get this out. I don't think their next game is going to be ready anytime soon. It looks like they're done with content for Expedition 33. Haven't really heard too much from the development staff on there. I know that they're probably overwhelmed with the amount of people that have picked up this game, that have played it. It was way more successful than they even thought it could be. It did really well on Steam, but I do think that the console performance of the game, because it was on Game Pass, so getting a hybrid portable and home console version of this game anywhere that you want, I think that would be incredible, especially if you're a fan of like Mario and Luigi or Paper Mario. This game has the time sensitive context like button presses for offense and defense. Now it's dressed up and looks completely different. The tone and style and everything is completely different with the story and the graphics. But if you are a fan of it, I think this could actually do well on the Nintendo Switch 2. And of course, it's a game of the year, really high quality game. I put 90 plus hours into it on the PlayStation 5. And if it came out on the Switch 2 with a portable version, I would probably go do New Game Plus and all that. I just didn't feel like sitting down on my couch and doing that or using a PS Portal to do all that stuff over again. But if I can just play it casually and it came out maybe during the NFL season this year, yeah, I'm definitely going to go through and play that game again on the Switch 2 in portable mode and just enjoy the content again. Just play the game. That's why I haven't replayed it or did New Game Plus. I'm like, I'll probably play it again if it comes to the Switch 2. So Xbox 33 would be a phenomenal release, and I hope it happens. Next up is Romeo is a Dead Man. That's also via the developer. Suda51 has straight up said, we want this game to come. We're looking into it. I don't know how well it did on Xbox and PlayStation. I didn't hear any of my mutuals who are into content creation talk about this game. Everybody that I saw, it was all people that already have like Switch 1 or Switch 2 and know about No More Heroes and are big fans of it that decided to check this one out. So that might have been a misfire on there. I don't know the sales numbers and all that. They haven't announced anything, but I think that might have been a misfire kind of planning for that just because nobody's really playing it, I think, on there. There's also no real physical release just yet. So I think that's a big, I would say, problem when it comes to it, like no physical release at all for the game. So I think that might happen later, but it'd be really cool if they said, all right, we're porting the game over to Nintendo Switch 2. It's getting a real cartridge physical release, or it's getting at least a game key card at the bare minimum. And I think people would be excited about that because No More Heroes and Suda's games just in general do really well, or well enough when it comes to Suda's selling type of games. They do well enough on Nintendo platforms. So we'll see if Romeo is a Dead Man comes over. Next up is Doom the Dark Ages, which has been rumored before or speculation, but also Nintendo put up a render from Doom the Dark Ages when talking about Doom like 2016 or something like that, which was hilarious. It was on the Nintendo news section for the Nintendo Switch 2. We're like, oh, check out like the Bethesda games, and they were showing a bunch of like Switch 1 stuff or something like that. It might have been Switch 1 or Switch 2, I don't really know, but they were showing like a bunch of Bethesda stuff, and it literally had the Doom the Dark Ages render. The Doom the Dark Ages render is different from the Doom 2016 render. They are not the same. So the fact that they actually used it, it might have just been a mistake, but there's been rumors about Doom the Dark Ages, and of course Microsoft is porting over everything. It just kind of like clicks, right? So we'll see if that happens. I think Doom the Dark Ages probably will come to the Nintendo Switch 2. We did get Doom Eternal, and we got Doom 2016 on the Switch 1, so it just makes sense that Doom the Dark Ages comes over to Nintendo Switch 2, considering they went through some crazy stuff to get Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal running somewhat decently on the Nintendo Switch 1. Okay, next up is Death Stranding Director's Cut. That's also DocTrey81 theorized via LinkedIn as well. And listen, Death Stranding's on everything, but just, not Nintendo hardware at this point. And to me, it makes sense. I mean, that's a PlayStation 4 game. You want it to be as big of a franchise as possible. The sales of Death Stranding 2 maybe aren't the best so far, but Death Stranding Director's Cut apparently did okay. And if you put it out on Switch 2, it's a high-profile game. It's a game that people really like. I think that there will be some Nintendo fans or people that just like the game that want a native, dedicated, portable version of the game. Potentially even maybe like a physical copy of the game. Not sure if that will happen, but if they did something like that, I think that'd be appealing to some people out there. So Death Stranding, maybe Kojima finally comes back to making something on a Nintendo platform here with Death Stranding Director's Cut, or something that he's made at least, outside of the Konami older games that have came out on the Switch or Switch 2 and all that. So yeah, we'll see if that happens there. Final Fantasy 14, the producer comments, they've been talking about this for quite some time. Square Enix is pretty much full on multi-platform, full on supporting the Nintendo Switch platform, Nintendo just in general, Switch 2. So I would think that Final Fantasy 14 is coming, and it will be announced at a Nintendo Direct maybe by the end of the year. I think they want to get Final Fantasy Rebirth, get that out, get the third game announced, and then get Final Fantasy 14 kind of wedged in between that when it comes to announcements. So I would expect Final Fantasy 14 to come out on the Nintendo Switch 2 probably next year sometime, but we'll see. It's already out on Xbox. Of course, it's already been out on PlayStation for a while now, and it's a really good MMO. I'm not an MMO guy myself, but I know there's a lot of people that would probably play Final Fantasy 14 on the Nintendo Switch 2, especially in a portable type state. I think people would go crazy for that. So Final Fantasy 14, hopefully we get an announcement for that very soon. All right, next up is Bloodstained, the Scarlet engagement via LinkedIn as well. Shout out to Doc Trey. He's on the case here. And yeah, this one of course makes sense as well. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, that did good enough on the Nintendo Switch 1. The Castlevania games have a long history. This is like the spiritual successor of the Castlevania. Igarashi, he's on this and everything, so it just makes sense that this new one would come over to the Nintendo Switch 2. It looks good, a little bit stiff, but it looks good. I do think that it's going to be fun when it comes out. The original game, there was some issues, but they patched it and made it a much better game over time, and I think it's actually one of the 2 games that I've ever backed on Kickstarter. Temtem and this game here. So we'll see what happens with Bloodstained, the Scarlet engagement. Next, we got to talk about GTA 6. There's been rumors from Nate the Hate stating that Rockstar was trying to get the game working on the Switch 2, adapting, doing different things. I have my own theory about GTA 6 and how Nintendo's using some of their extra development studios with Shiver, who helps out with WWE 2K, and of course, that's also 2K. Rockstar, they have their connection, so I think that maybe Shiver and of course Nintendo's new development studio, Bandai Namco Singapore, or Nintendo Singapore at this point, maybe they're helping out to give them all the resources and time and other things that they need to potentially get this thing on the Nintendo Switch 2. Don't know if it's going to be in day and date type of thing. Don't know if it's even going to happen, because the last that we heard of it, Nate the Hate was saying that it's something that they were trying to get going on there. They did some tests, but he doesn't have any updates from there. So if there was like a Nintendo Direct later, maybe in September, and they say GTA's coming in 2027, or if it was day and date, that'd be like the greatest thing ever. But it's not going to happen probably day and date. But let's just say maybe at some point it comes. That would be great for Nintendo. That'd be great for Rockstar. I think people would be down to buy 2 versions of the game, one on PlayStation, one on the Nintendo Switch 2. And if they had cross save on there, that would just be like the cherry on top when it comes to something that people would probably really enjoy. So we'll see if GTA 6 happens, but that is rumored out there that they were doing some tests. So I think they want it to happen, but let's see if it actually does happen. And there's actually a bunch of other games, and there's stuff that's already been talked about with developers like Mugenics and Marvel Rivals and Codename Watari and stuff. So there's a lot of leaks and rumors, but I wanted to go over the biggest ones, the biggest games that you guys have been asking about. So what do you guys think when it comes to everything here? What are you looking forward to the most when it comes to big leaked or rumored Switch 2 games? And what else would you like to see added onto the list? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.